From years of anxiety to warrior and mentor, Bradley Robinson created the Anxiety Project to help you end your anxiety naturally. Let's mold the new you and let's end anxiety together.
Hello and welcome to the Anxiety Project podcast. This episode is number 108. I am Brad Robinson. This episode is going to be all about minimalizing. It's a huge chunk of the anxiety recovery journey because if there's too much going on, then it's hard to pick out really what's relevant and what's not relevant, right? And so before I get into that, I just want to go over some of your guys' reviews of the podcast. And the first one is from Patrick_86. Love the episode where you talk about the negative thoughts of someone you love getting ill. Yep, that was the last episode, number 107. Struggling with anxiety, the podcast gave me a sense of relief, like I don't have to react to every negative thought that comes to my mind. Very true, Patrick. Yep. A very powerful episode because it's those negative thoughts that we react to, but then it's also that reaction to that thought attaches meaning, and then that meaning and then that thought sticks around because your unconscious is like, well, this is important to you. Well, let's keep it around. So thank you, Patrick, for your review. Wizard Girl _, she says, or she asks, actually, can you do more podcasts on panic episodes and how to deal with them? And so I've done a lot of podcasts in the past about different experiences I've had, like at the art gallery with Maggie, going to the art gallery and then having a panic attack and then what happened, and then me analyzing that situation from the perspective that I have now. And so thank you, Wizard Girl. Yes, I'd love to do more of those. And I want to revisit old panic episodes I've had in the past and then analyze them from the perspective that I have now, and how and what to do when you are faced with a situation like that, right? So yes, definitely. Stacy, she says, love how you opened up about your struggles with pornography. Really insightful. That was a deep episode for me because I talk about it a lot on my YouTube channel in those videos there, but in this one I really wanted to dive deep into the addiction that was pornography. So a lot of people really found that to be insightful, and I'm an open book on this podcast. I'm an open book. I'm going to say what I've been dealing with, what I struggled with in the past, all of my insecurities and my faults, because they live inside everybody, right? And so that's, I'm glad that you guys find this information to be powerful, to be really insightful. And I want to speak the truth, right? This is all about overcoming our struggles, especially with anxiety, but anxiety comes with a lot of other struggles, with addictions that lead to anxiety, right? A lot of poor beliefs, bad values, the people we hang around, a lot of different factors. So in this podcast episode, I really want to talk about minimalizing and how minimalism is really important because, like I said before, there's too much information. How to all that information to an anxiety sufferer coming in through our five senses, to an anxiety sufferer, everything is so overwhelming because they're already sensitive, right? And so at the beginning of my anxiety recovery journey, I started to minimalize without me knowing that it was minimalization. So what happened was I took on responsibility for my anxiety disorder. So when I took responsibility for my anxiety, that became my focal point, right? It became top value This is what's important to me. I don't want to live like this anymore. I'm living in pain. I'm suffering every day. I'm living inside this small little box. Things need to change. And so when I started to learn and grow from anxiety, I felt different. Like I felt like there's more meaning in my life. My focus was just on recovery. I put everything else on the back burner. Like I've said before, you have to become selfish, especially if you want to overcome a challenge like this. You have to become self-centered because you can't help your spouse, your partner, your friends, other people without helping yourself, right? You can't say things like, it's okay, and you can't really give advice to other people. And if you're suffering, if you have all of these faults, if you're doing stupid things every day. So my focus was recovery. That was it. So I put Maggie, my girlfriend at the time, she's now my fiance. So my girlfriend, at the time I put her on the back burner. I put my family, on the back burner. I just became self-centered. Okay, I gotta figure this out. And so that's minimalizing in a sense. I was just focused on this one thing, and everything else became just this irrelevant, unimportant thing, right? And minimalizing those people around you, especially negative friends, is really going to benefit you, right? The negative content you subject yourself to, like nonsense YouTube videos, or you're just binging Netflix, watching the news all the time, all of this stuff, even listening to commercial radio, right? All the advertisements and being subjected to that information, negative content. It's time to be your own individual being, right? Instead of dependent and instead of a puppet to society and to other people, instead of being so dependent, it's time to develop yourself into this individual person. And so I became more conscious of consumerism, and the reduction of that led me to form my own beliefs as I became more knowledgeable about anxiety and about myself. So I was so reactive to everything on the radio, the news, even advertisements that sell products. I was like a slave to my impulses, right? So I used to believe everything I heard, right? I was a very dependent guy, but also I took people's advice to heart, right? That was because I had a very dependent personality. I didn't trust in myself, so I took every word of advice to heart. Like I believed them, right? And I didn't have my own solid foundation to question other people. I was just like a slave, and I wasn't knowledgeable about a lot of things. I was just in my small little compartment of this box, right? But I was a consumer. I was a consumer where I wanted the next thing, and excuse me, and I never felt fulfilled, right? That I needed the next thing. And human beings are searchers. We're searching creatures, right? And so you can feel it, that searching, that longing, when you're working at a job you don't like, and it's the same job day in and day out, and it's the same routine, but then you feel this, you feel inside yourself this yearning that there's something more, that this isn't enough. And so then that leads to that consumerism. You're buying the next Xbox, and then you're buying the computers and the next vehicle, the next phone, the next piece of clothing that you hear, because that thing is going to make you happy. But then you get it and then it doesn't make you happy. And then you get the next thing and you're just grabbing onto these things because we're searching creatures, but we're not directing that energy in the appropriate way. We're directing it towards that consumerism and being a slave to the consumer, the materialism, right? And so that leads you down a bad path, and it led me down a bad path because I was always trying to cope with the voids within myself, smoking weed or eating junk food or buying the next jacket because I saw some guy in a movie wearing a cool jacket and I wanted to be like that guy. So I'd buy the jacket and then I'd wear that, but then I'd see something different and then I would go buy that thing. And so I was always spending my money in the wrong places. So I was a slave to those internal drives. And when we buy those things, we get that dopamine kick from those things, and that leads us back because our brains are like, oh, that feel good moment when I got that thing is nice, so let's do it again. And so we're tilted towards that materialistic item again. And so going through my anxiety recovery, I would shut off the radio because of the advertisements. I started to lessen my TV time. I started to just sit around and just read and get myself knowledgeable about anxiety. And I would reduce these areas of our society that manipulate us, right? And manipulated me. And so I just wanted to block all that out because I was so focused on getting better. And so no social media, or little to none social media, it really helped me. And even spending less time with Maggie helped me too, because I was a studying freak, right? I was studying everything about anxiety and what to do and looking up to the role models that I admire who've overcome anxiety. And so I was modeling after them, and I wanted to subject myself to them all the time. So I just put, those negative friends, I put Maggie, I put my family all on the back burner. And so that was that was minimalizing, right, essentially. And so when I set that aim of overcoming anxiety, I put that aim, so overcoming anxiety, I put that at the top of my hierarchy. And so, like I said before, that became just the center, the center focus, right? You have to really want to change, because I was in a deep hole when I decided to overcome anxiety. And so that drive of change is possible, that if I just stay on this path, change is inevitable. I was all on board. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that if I kept my role models around and I learned from them on YouTube, on podcasts, and I just submerged myself in that knowledge, I knew that I would recover eventually, because that's how you recover, is just subjecting yourself, just being all in, right? So you can start out small with minimalizing just by cleaning your bedroom, because the bedroom is, in the state of your bedroom, is a direct I would say it's a direct reflection of your own mind. And so if your room is messy, you're going to have a messy mind. I've seen people with messy homes and they're anxious people, right? And it's like, well, if you just cleaned up your house, maybe, the clutter in your mind would clear up too. And that's actually true, because when we enter a messy room, the stress response becomes active. We feel the negative emotion. So you may ask, why do we feel that negative emotion when we enter a room that's cluttered? It's because that clutter represents obstacles. So if you're driving along and you have an appointment to get to, and then there's a traffic jam, that traffic jam is an obstacle. It's going to give you the negative emotion. And so that traffic jam is that obstacle to getting to your appointment. And so you're going to feel stressed, you're going to get angry, and you're going to beat yourself up. And so entering a cluttered room, that's the same circuitry. That's the stress response. That negative emotion comes from the clutter's an obstacle. I can't find something. All of this clutter is an obstacle. There could be stuff on the floor that's in the way of your bed, and you're trying to get to bed. That stuff on the floor is an obstacle. So when you look at it, you get the negative emotion. So when you begin to declutter, what happens is that those negative responses, those negative emotions lessen, and eventually when your room is nice and clean, there won't be any negative. It'd be inviting, because a nice room is inviting. You go into a nice minimalized room, there's a couple plants, books on the shelf, everything's tidy. It's like, everything is in its right place. There's no need to activate any negative emotion. Everything is just nice. Everything is, it's easy to find, but it's also inviting. That come into the room, it's relaxing. It's, it's a place to wind down, right? So decluttering your room is a great beginning point for minimalizing. And you're going to find that once you begin to declutter, your anxiety lessens when you're in the room, right? Or your mind clears up, and you also get that dopamine reward that, I did something today. Out of everything today, at least I did that thing. At least I cleaned my room. So you can feel good about yourself when you do that, right? So minimalizing can also apply to the messy mind through journaling, right? So before, when I started this whole anxiety recovery journey, I was working in the film industry, and I was always anxious about the next day. I always had these what if thoughts about showing up to work late. What if I don't do a good job? What if I can't find the place? All of these things made me anxious the night before. And that's why I would avoid work a lot of the time. So when I was really taking my job seriously in my anxiety recovery, what I would do is I would write down what I needed to do the next day. Okay, wake up at this time. Okay, eat breakfast at this time. Leave the house by this time. Possibly arrive at the location at this time. And so I was organizing my day. And so when I organized my day, I found that I was less anxious, that my mind didn't need to hold on to my mind didn't need to hold on to all of those what if thinking, what if thoughts, that it was all on paper. Everything is there. I don't need to hold on to the thoughts anymore because it's on paper. I put it beside my bed and I can go to sleep, and I actually sleep better when I do this because my mind's not trying to figure out things, right? It's on paper. It's there. It's cemented. I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to hold on to these thoughts. My mind can clear up. So that's minimalizing the thoughts in my mind. So that's a great strategy for dealing with a cluttered mind, but also adding minimalism into your life. So in this podcast, we talked about decluttering the bedroom and how the bedroom is a direct reflection of the mind, right? Also, organizing your thoughts and reducing the amount of thoughts and putting them onto paper allows you to organize them, but also it's a releasing strategy. also about consumerism, materialism, how we are a slave to that, right? We are a slave, and I was a slave. That's why I can talk about this so easily, because I was a consumer. I was very materialistic, and I found that when I began to get rid of things from my bedroom, I felt lighter. The clutter was lightening, and then my mind, the things in my mind, the clutter in my mind began to lighten too. So the organization of the room also helped me with the organization of my own self and my thoughts. And that's where I'm going to leave you on today's podcast episode. Thank you for being here with me today. And the reviews at the beginning of this podcast were sent in via social media, anywhere from Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Brad's Profile, Facebook, The Anxiety Project on Facebook, YouTube, and you can go to my website at unpluganxiety.com, where you can send me any questions, anything you want. And I always do Q&A podcast episodes, so send me your questions and I will answer them on the podcast. And lastly, can't forget, do not let anxiety define who you are. I will see you on the next podcast episode. Bye for now.
Brad's powerful anxiety recovery program is available at unpluganxiety.com. The Anxiety Project program is downloadable and puts the power of anxiety